Where's the air conditioner? Ain't there air conditioner in this room?
No, they probably turn it off except on Monday nights.
Man,
I bet it might be worth a conversation.
yeah. It's summertime now.
I don't know. Was it really hot last summer? We've been here a year after all. We've been through it.
All right, good evening, everyone. Let's call our Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board meeting to order for May 1st, 2024. We'll begin with our roll call. Aniskevich?
Here.
Gippin?
Here.
Peebles?
Here.
Hawkins?
Here.
Castle?
Here.
Costa?
Present.
Reed?
Here.
And Ms. Richards will be absent on this evening. And we'll go to Ms. Castle for the reading of our Oversight Board values and purpose.
The overarching mission of the Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board is to foster conditions and police practices that ensure the safety of all residents of the city of Akron. The CPOB is empowered by a new city charter provision to independently direct the police auditor, whose office reviews investigations into complaints and misconduct involving officers. The board and auditor also review every standard investigation, whether by the Akron Police Department or outside agencies, into the use of deadly force by an officer. The CPOB envisions each of its members to be change makers, bridge builders, diplomats, and servant leaders who, together with the police, city of Akron, and community at large, will foster a systemic culture that enables action on policing and community safety issues based on trusting relationships, responsiveness, and accountability to the people of Akron, serve as a gateway to knowledge and understanding for members of the community regarding policing practices and civilian oversight of law enforcement, advance police training and practices based on educational and information resources, and demonstrated effective practices in policing and civilian oversight of law enforcement, reinforce the image of police as partners with Akron residents who strive to ensure safe neighborhoods and a safe community for all. Our decisions and actions are motivated by our love for Akron and our desire for all to feel safe in the community. We value unity in voice and action. We respect each other and those we serve. We seek to build relationships of trust, and we seek to always conduct ourselves with integrity. We listen to understand, learn, and lead. We strive to be inclusive of all stakeholders' voices. We value change at a system level. We hold ourselves accountable for our actions and deeds, and we hold our partners and those we serve to be accountable for their actions and deeds.
Thank you, Ms. Castle. Can I get a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Now we're on to item number 5 of our agenda, which is public comment. Ms. Aniskevich?
Lee Holden, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening. I want to speak this evening about my concern about prone restraint. Prone restraint, holding someone down, also sometimes known as takedown, body slam, lots of ways to describe it, but technical term, prone restraint. If we needed any reminders after George Floyd's death, we had another one in Canton recently, Mr. Tyson, who died in prone restraint. So I just want to express my concern about it and hope that you will look for patterns in the use of prone restraint, try to figure out how we can reduce its use eventually to zero. And I did bring a handout this evening. I've got an excerpt from an article from California about the use of prone restraint, and on the flip side, it has the abstract of a medical article about the effects of prone restraint. I want to make sure that those who use prone restraint understand that it's potentially lethal, and that we should find every other means of dealing with situations, with getting compliance, with controlling a situation, and not have to use prone restraint. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holden. That's it.
Thank you again, Ms. Holden, and many others for your public comments. Now we're going to roll into item number 6A on our agenda, which is our governance, or our committee report outs, and we're going to begin with Mr. Gippen and governance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One item to report on, and then one I will have a motion. The report is that we began discussion at the meeting last week about the procedure for review of complaints and use of force matters, which is so central, and the need for that procedure to be in place has become somewhat urgent. I mean, we're plainly able to function well enough without it, but much better if we have a procedure. So we had a fair amount of talk about what might be included in that procedure, where we might source, some background information for it. I should add that Craig Morgan was there. He had done a draft a couple of years ago, which I think we've all seen, which, after we thought about it, serves as a good initial draft. And Mr. Fennell undertook to working off of that and other sources of potential templates that he might have nationally, to start first work on a draft with the intention of, if all goes well, that we would hopefully bring a final recommendation out of committee next week for the meeting in 2 weeks. And Mr. Fennell did circulate a first draft to the committee today, which was a very good start. I told him, for myself, I'm going to have an easier time talking about it than doing a draft revision, but that's underway, and I think I have some optimism that I think we can meet the schedule. So that's all good. And anybody else that's interested in working at that level who isn't on the committee, let me or let Mr. Fennell know, and we can pull you into that conversation. Actually, I think the draft's on the SharePoint, which everybody can access. But so that's underway. Good piece of work. The other item for which I will have a motion concerns. Let me make the motion. Maybe that's the easiest thing. And this is the committee voted to recommend this, not in specific but in substance. I move that the board initiate formal discussions with the administration for independent legal counsel to be retained by the city to represent the board and the auditor.
Second.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, we were discussing this item, as members, except for Ms. Hawkins, will recall, even last year, where legal counsel might well be beneficial, not only beneficial, but really the best course of action in terms of policy for the city as a whole. As we've come into this year and and with new activity and some of the issues that arose, in light of the first report that Mr. Fennell made that we approved, the need for such legal counsel seemed to the committee, to be even stronger. And, just to explain, while the law department has done a very good job, for us, since the first of the year, particularly. There simply is almost literally a potential conflict of interest because, as we did, we recommended a course of action taken by the police department, be reconsidered, and so on and so on. And for any one lawyer, law firm, or law department, to provide advice, both to us and to the police department and other parts of the city administration, it can't work. I know Mr. Morgan wasn't, he wasn't charged with commenting particularly on that, but what he did have to say was useful. I did mention just a minute ago to Ms. Matz that we would be bringing this resolution out. So pursuing it with the administration, it seems to me, is a good start. See where that goes, how that would be structured, how it would be paid for, are matters, the details that would need to be worked through, but we do think the formal discussion should begin. I'd be happy to answer questions if members have them for Mr. Fennell.
I just think a quick comment. I agree entirely with what Mr. Gibbons said. I think that this could be a mutually beneficial arrangement, especially as the law department has spent considerable resources assisting the board, to which I think they've done really the best job that they could to their ability. So I think this is a really good move, and I also don't think that's something that's uncommon with respect to the way that the oversight boards operate across the country and having access to independent legal counsel.
I agree.
And as one of the attorneys on the board, it would be awesome to have additional actual counsel helping us.
I agree. I concur with both Mr. Gibbon and Mr. Costa. I think it's time. We've been seated for a year now. The law department has done the best they can for us, or the best that they were willing to do for us, and I think it's time for us to have our own counsel.
Mr. Chairman, I only slightly differing. I think the law department, both the last administration and this administration, has done more than just what they may be willing to do. I think there were some inherent issues, but I think that in both the former law director, present law director, and staff have operated in entire good faith with us, and I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Mr. Skippin. Thank you, Mr. Skippin. Is there any more questions or comments? If not, Mr. Gippin, would you like to table this, or we want to?
No, I'd like a vote if we could.
All right. Let's roll call vote. Anaskevich?
Yes.
Gippin?
Yes.
Peebles? Yes. Hawkins? Yes. Castle?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Boyd, yes. Resolution passes.
That's all we have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gippin. Now we'll move on to, hold on, let me pull up this. Now we'll move on to Ms. Anaskevich and HR.
Yes, all I have is that we have crafted, along with the help of Mr. Fennell, what I think is a very solid and a very succinct application with criteria and characteristics needed for a deputy independent auditor. So I would like to make a motion that we vote on, I would like to move that we vote on putting forth the deputy police auditor application, so we can move forward with that and start the ball rolling on obtaining a deputy police auditor.
I'll second that motion.
And Mr. Chairman, just so I understand it, is the motion to approve issuing that description?
Correct.
Thank you.
Second. Any further discussions from Mr. Fennell or Ms. Anaskevich with HR? Go ahead, Mr. Fennell.
I just wanted to add that I have been in contact with HR Director for the City of Akron, and pending approval by the board, we can most likely get this posted and open by this Friday at the latest.
Okay.
Mr. Costa.
Good work, Mr. Fennell. Appreciate it. This was a quick turnaround. We did a review of this, I believe, last Wednesday, and we appreciate you keeping us copied in to the communications to get this rolling. Appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
All right. We ready to vote? Everybody? We'll roll call it. Anaskevich?
Yes.
Gippon?
Yes.
Peoples?
Yes.
Hawkins? Castle?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Boyd, yes. Resolution passes. Anything else from HR, Ms. Anaskevich?
No, that's it. That's what we discussed in our meeting, subcommittee meeting last week, and that was pretty much the primary discussion was the independent, deputy independent police auditor and what the criteria would be in the application process. And we had a little bit of discussion about the characteristics of the work and qualifications. So again, with the help of Mr. Fennell, we decided to go with what we have here and then put that forward.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll go to community engagement and Mr. Costa.
Thank you. So we met last Wednesday, April 24th at Summit Community Action. We had a 1 hour, but I think a pretty impactful meeting, really prioritizing and focusing on our first goal under our strategic plan, which is creating a shared vision for community and police relations. I don't really know where we go from here after the meeting, to be completely honest. My major takeaway from that meeting is, one, the only way that we are really going to build and strengthen relationships are through positive personal interactions between members of the community and Akron police departments. And what our role is in terms of facilitating that in a community setting, I'm really not sure yet. Because the other takeaway is that I think our number one priority right now needs to be educating people on the complaint process, how to file complaints, how to access them, and what the process is in itself. So I want to take a little bit more time to kind of think through where we go from here from a next step standpoint. Before we convene and come back and meet next time, I'm going to take it upon myself to create a fillable PDF form for a complaint so we can get that updated. I think the continued, some of the feedback that I've been getting is just that it's really hard to file a complaint from a cell phone or from a device, in either having to print it out and then scan it and upload, or either having to print it out and bring it in directly. And I think that we're doing a disservice to folks, and we've been talking about this for a while. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I want to, I'll notify the board members, and I'll work with Shannon to get that posted. From a higher level thought, I think that if we could establish some type of community engagement calendar, that's one thing that Anthony had brought up to me even on his first day. Was he asked me, he said, where are our shared calendars? Why aren't these community events that the folks that are bringing up at our meetings, why aren't those on everybody's calendars? Why don't we have reminders? And so I think that could be one approach towards more proactively getting board members into places and spaces that real engagement occurs, which is in the community, ultimately. So that's the report I've got. More to come. And I welcome board members if you've got ideas, thoughts, perspectives in terms of how we can be best engaging folks in the community, then please do share. And that's it for now.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. I do want to acknowledge.
I just wanted to comment, we do have a calendar on our website, so if community leaders want to reach out to our office, we can post things on our website, meetings and agenda, whatever.
I think, Mr. Costa, my recollection is that the city maintains a calendar of a lot of the events that are going on. I think it may be possible to access that, and to the extent it's relevant to what we're doing, that would be a start.
So I'm kind of thinking more so, how do we create something that we are then kind of promoting and tag along with events as well too, that we also are kind of coordinating with our own calendars and Outlook. Right. So then all board members have things on their calendars as well too. But I do appreciate you pointing that out, because you're 200% right. And there's no point in reinventing the wheel if the city's already got things that they're promoting and highlighting specifically that fit into the areas of our operation.
Mr. Chairman, this isn't directly relevant. I thought it was the meeting was very impactful. It was. whether meant to be or not, just with, all the comments that were made. One takeaway I had from it, though, and also from the discussion that's been reported, particularly in City Council and among members, while I think community engagement is fundamental to part of our purpose, okay, and it's going to be important to improving the situation, if I can call it that, at Akron. It seems to me increasingly that conversation alone is not going to make the difference. That I think there are substantive changes. That we're hopefully beginning to see the shape of what some recommendations about that might be. But substantive changes in how policing is conducted in Akron, I think, are going to be essential for the long-range success. The two go together, but there needs to be something to talk about, not just getting to know each other better.
Mr. Gibbon, like oftentimes, you're right on point. And my hesitation in saying what kind of next steps are for that exact reason, because I don't want to meet just to meet. I don't think that's respectful of people's time. And so, but what I'm hearing though is that the engagement could perhaps occur more around substantive conversations about policy itself, which is a little bit nuanced from what we're doing in governance. I think in governments we have very high level conversations about what we need to do from a procedural standpoint, but it's not necessarily, well, we do solicit feedbacks from our many members who attend our governance meetings, but they're not really structured in a way to where we're asking pointed and directed questions to really tease out some of these aspects about people's thoughts, perspectives, and feelings around policies. So maybe it's more so community engagement forums that we need to be thinking about, because that does align with the education aspect and what we should be doing. So I appreciate you mentioning that, and let's circle back to that.
Yeah, I agree with you completely about that.
I also wanted to comment, I thought the meeting was really well done. I thought Mr. Costa and the rest of the board members who were there and participated, I thought the feedback rate, the community members that participated, being there was great, because I think when the community's involved, that's what makes it impactful, is being able to have them there. And I also just want to say how the alignment of things have happened. So I don't want to get too far away with acknowledging our former board member, Reverend Lewis, and the work that she's put in, because a lot of what I was hearing, it was this kind of, if you will, 3-tier approach to community engagement, right? One aspect or one pathway is education. I think the other aspect is when we talk about these recommendations that you're saying, Mr. Gippin and Mr. Costa, what does that look like as well? But I remember, and maybe Ms. Costa, you can help me, but I remember Ms. Lewis started, she had like the 4 E's, if you will. One was educate, to engage, to empower, and man, I forget the 4th L, but that's what I was really hearing. So what I like, Mr. Costa, it seemed like you're still in alignment with that, which is good. It's not a recreating of anything. And I think even to bring in Mr. Fennell into this, I think there's already been some council members who've reached out to him that have asked him to come present for their ward meetings, which I think is really beneficial, because it gets our auditor out there, for one, so they can not only know his name, but they recognize his face, which I think is going to be very beneficial. But again, he's an expert in what he does, right? And so being able to be talked to by an expert, I think, is beneficial. And so I think that's really good. And I didn't know, Mr. Fennell, if you wanted to speak to any of those calls that you've received or anything like that, but I think from the perspective of what I've seen, whether it's that meeting or even being out with you, personally, the engagement that I've seen you do has been really, I think, it's had influence as we continue to move along. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Costa.
Thank you.
I also want to say, I think we'd be remiss if we don't mention the Akron police officers who were there, one who was retired, and one current who was at the meeting last week, who I believe they gave great insight on how to engage with the community in a more friendlier way, if you will. Like the kids, they gave some examples, like if you see a kid with his bicycle broken down and the cruiser's riding by, to stop and help him fix his bicycle, things like that. It kind of goes under the umbrella of community policing, and The one officer, he's been retired for 7 years. I used to work with him, and I was really happy to see him there. And as a retired police officer, he really could have been anywhere else that evening and doing anything else, but he was there to try to see where he could try to help, us have a more conciliatory relationship between the board, the police, and the community.
Yeah, so shout out, that was Zempellet, yeah, I was going to say Danny
Officer Zempellet,
Zempellet
yes,
and Captain Miller that were there
Yes.
as well, too. I think they do a good job of underscoring the tension that's between, from what I understand, the experience that police have in the day-to-day versus the experience that community members have and live with. And, like, I don't know. Another takeaway is just, like, I think there needs to be some healing in the APD internally. And what that looks like, that's on them. But I think the continuous takeaway is that we have good APD officers. We have like really caring officers. But we still got some issues,
Absolutely.
and we gotta cut through that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Costa. Now we're going to move on to Mr. Fennell and the Review Committee report.
Thank you. Since our last board meeting, I have reviewed 4 uses of force where I concur with APD's findings. I'm currently in review with 7 additional uses of force incidents, and I'm awaiting various components of each case from APD so I can complete those reviews. And for the one review that I did not concur with the findings, I submitted the recommendations to the mayor and city council on April 19th. So I'm waiting a response from those 2 bodies. We've received, as of today, we received 4 citizen complaints that were sent to APD for investigation. And currently I have 4 various projects in various stages, one being a database case management development, and I'm in the process of developing the database and case management system to make our data collection more efficient. I've had discussions already with developers and vendors, and on next Wednesday, on May 7th, next week, I will have a meeting with members of the Akron IT department to see what we need in order to move forward. And then once I get that information, I'll be able to bring everything back to the board to have a discussion on which direction we should go. Mr. Gibbons spoke about the process and procedures draft, so that's still in works. And again, like Mr. Gibbons said, we hope to have something to bring to this body by the next board meeting, as well as Ms. Anastovich speaking on the Deputy Independent Police Auditor. So we hope to be accepting applications for 3 weeks once that process is opened. And then there's ongoing conversations between the mayor's office, APD, city law, and my office on access and information sharing between my office and particularly my office and APD, but also including the mayor's office and city law. So that meeting is yet to be scheduled. We've had one meeting that was well attended, and so I sent a request asking for a follow-up for next steps, so we're just waiting for that meeting to be scheduled. And that's it.
Mr. Fennell, there's a couple, excuse my voice, there's a couple things that I just wanted to request. I think, as you just stated, that there are a lot of things that you need access to concerning the administration. That cannot wait. That cannot wait. That should have happened before he came. We requested that before he came in office. He needs access to the various databases in order to be able to thoroughly fulfill his responsibility to the citizens of Akron. That cannot wait. I don't know if we need to pass a resolution to implement this and to make this go further, but that cannot wait. This should not be an ongoing discussion. It's either, yes, he can have access to the databases, or no, he can't. And if it's a no, that needs to be explained to the public why he can't. And furthermore, we need to go about finding some way to access information. There's too much going on in this city. There's too much that he has to do. There's a backlog of work. He has to have as much access to information, if not the exact access to information, as APD. That should have happened a long time ago. Also, I just wanted to say, as it concerns when you do put out a report, and I think this is important for the board to consider, we need a timeline. It shouldn't be ambiguous as it concerns when our auditor puts out a report with his recommendations that do not align with the APD findings. It should not be from the mayor's office. We'll take a look at it with this indefinite, ambiguous time period as to when they're going to give a response to our auditor's report. So I am requesting from our administration, and I understand that there's a lot going on. This is a new administration, and I want to be cognizant of the things that are going on in the city. But this cannot wait. This board was seated last year, and we had so many delays. To me, I feel like we have the best person to be able to carry out the desires of the citizens who put this board in place. And I want to make sure that the administration is not a barrier or an obstacle to him being able to do the work that's necessary, including a timeline to respond to our auditor's report. I would like to suggest that it be within 30 days. They have a timeline to release body cam footage. And so, again, I know this is new. This is not something that has ever probably come about before, but I am requesting that this board be adamant in assisting our auditor in performing his duties to press upon the administration that we need a timeline for them to respond to our auditor's reports. Thanks.
I agree. Well said. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Mr. Gippen, would that be something, to Ms. Reed's point, that will go into our policies and our procedures? Like, what do we need to do?
We can't do more. We can't do more than what Ms. Reed quite eloquently did, which is to implore. Was that your word? I forget. Implore the administration to establish, a timeline of that nature, a 30-day timeline to respond. But we can do no more than request. I mean, that is not in our power, and it could not be part of our procedures. And the only caution, I mean, Mr. Chair, I think you've often said, we can't, some form of, you can't let, haste can't be the priority necessarily. Some reports are going to require more time, I would expect, for the city to respond meaningfully than others. But it's not in our power. They both the council and the administration will set their own procedures, timelines, whatever they may do as to how they respond to non-concurrence reports.
So can we, but can we make a formal request in writing to say, hey, we would like to see this timeline in place on any?
Consider it on the governance agenda, okay?
Okay.
Well,
I think that fits into our ability to make recommendations to city council and to the mayor's office directly. So is it our position that we want to adopt, and I guess we could talk about this in governance, but the timeline to which we would like the administration to respond to reports?
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, it's plainly something that needs to be discussed with the administration and with council, before we formally say this is what we would like. But it's on the agenda. Good point. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
If I may, Ms. Pitts is here. Maybe she can give us.
Yes, she just raised her hand.
Yeah, maybe she can shed some light on how we might be able to go about this, not just go about it, but also expedite it.
Thank you. Thanks, Mrs. Anaskevich. I thank you so much for the comments. We feel your urgency and your need, and the public's too. And as you know, having set up over this last year, it takes a while to put these policies and procedures in place. As Mr. Fennell indicated, even on the auditor's side, we're still working on those communications, streams of communication. There are so many small details that need to be worked out, as you felt with even your own rules and procedures. So with this having been the first report that we received, we are busy coordinating meetings, and you are, of course, at liberty to send a recommendation to the administration, as the chairperson suggested. That is completely within your purview. But I would encourage you that we are working on that actively. We are prioritizing that. We are having internal conversations about what the process would look like, certainly from the mayor's administration. That was not outlined in the ordinance in itself, in the charter amendment, or in the rules and procedures. So it's something that we're having to build from the ground up. So we thank you for your patience, and certainly would like that to be a smooth process going forward so that we are responsive. I know that's saying a lot without saying much, but we are definitely working on that as quickly as possible.
And just while we have you here, and I just really, and this is something that I just feel personally passionate about, it is so important as we begin to continue to build our relationship with the administration and the APD, that transparency is prioritized. And I understand that there's a lot of things that are not as simple as just, hey, give them access to this information. But as best as possible and as fast as possible, if we could please make sure Mr. Fennell has access to, and Shannon, I cannot recall the 3 main programs that we had discussed in our meetings a few months ago, and unfortunately I don't have my notes with me. But there are 3, I know matrix system is one of them. And Mr. Fennell, you might be able to shed some light on this a bit more, but I just want to make sure I'm actually putting the bug directly into your ear, because this is so important to me.
Yes, Ms. Reed. During the conversations, when we had our meeting, and I've told this to Chief Harding, but I also reiterated it at the meeting, that the access that I need is the exact access that internal affairs investigators have. So I don't know all, I know some of the systems they have, but I don't know all of the systems, and I know that there is some legal considerations that need to be worked out, but that is the access. In order to do the reviews, I need to have access to the same material and the same information that they have, so that I can do an effective review of the work that they did using the same parameters.
And for my part, Ms. Reed, just my thanks earlier was to that point as well. We appreciate your putting that bug in, and duly received, duly noted. We have, as the mayor said, and I expressed to Mr. Fennell directly, we will do everything in our power to work cooperatively with him and collaborate with him and ensure that he has that access. As he indicated, there are some legal things that have to be worked out, and I cannot speak on behalf of the Akron Police Department. They have their own policies and procedures in place. But I know that, as he indicated, the meeting was well attended, the conversation was robust, and I believe we are moving forward. And so we will be working on that too.
Last thing, can we just establish a follow-up timeline, even if nothing else has came about? Maybe if we can just touch base with the Oversight Board every 2 weeks, just to say, hey, this is where we are. We haven't been able to, we don't have any further findings, but just to kind of create a line of communication directly to follow up every 2 weeks about this matter specifically, if that would be okay.
Certainly, as liaison to the board, I would be more than happy, and perhaps Mr. Fennell would like to reach out and would be happy to offer those updates. Thank you for that suggestion. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Pitt. Anything else from your report side, Mr. Fennell?
No, not at this time.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make an agenda suggestion for going forward? I wonder if Mr. Fennell's, just an auditor's report, might not be the first item after public comment to encompass anything that, the sorts of things we had today, but anything more broad, but we hear from him first.
Oh, yeah, we can change that. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Mr. Gippen, could you tell us when the next governance meeting is?
Yeah, next Tuesday, probably Highland Library. I always have to call and arrange.
Okay.
5:30 seems to work better than 5, folks.
Okay.
Yes, 5:30.
Yeah, if we can look at that timeline and possibly present something formally, I think would be beneficial.
The actions at governance, so please, to our community members, please, you know, people who want to know what's going on, come to our governance meetings. I know a lot of y'all do, so, and then also wanted to ask, Mr. Fennell, do you need anything else from us? I don't want to just put you on the spot, but I'd be remiss as a board member if I didn't ask consistently, what do you need from us?
As we sit here now, no, I can't think of anything, but I don't think that I've been reluctant in reaching out to the board to let you know my thoughts and where I think we need to move. So as they arise, I will continue to do that.
I'd like to make a suggestion. Now that we actually have an auditor, can we go back to, instead of having it say on the agenda review committee, can we just go back to saying auditor's report? I think it looks better.
That's what Mr. Gippen just said.
Okay.
Yeah, so Shannon's going to change that.
Right, and have it labeled auditor's report rather than review committee.
Yeah.
I think it looks better to the, you know, as it goes, the announcement goes out to the public and everything.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Okay. If that is all of our committee reports, I want to give the mic over to Ms. Reed.
Thank you so much. This has been a week of goodbyes for me. My job called me a month ago and said, Tristan, we want to move you to Akron to work and partner with a community organization here and see children there. So I had to say goodbye to like 100 of my patients yesterday. And here I am today. It is with great disdain, displeasure, that I have to announce that I am resigning from the board. This will be effective, my last meeting in attendance will be effective May 29th. And it is largely because I'm moving. And that's bittersweet, but the best decision for my family as a whole. If it were up to me, of course, I could stay longer, but I have to make the best decision for my son and for my husband. And we are excited. We were able to build our home. And unfortunately, due to its location, I will have to resign from the board. I will say more on my last meeting, but I did want to just announce to the public and make public that I will be resigning from the board, and my last meeting will be our May 29th meeting. It has been my greatest honor to contribute to this city and to pour into people. My purpose in life has always been to help people, and to be able to do it on this platform has been very meaningful to me. And I will serve in a different way. I am not far. I'm in a very close neighboring community, but I will just not be in this seat. And I will be sharing a space with many of you and advocating for the changes that I would like to see put forth. So thank you all, and it's bittersweet, but I'm still here. I just won't be serving in this capacity.
Thank you for your indelible service on this board. You will be sorely missed. By me especially, I feel, I'm speaking for myself because I don't believe in speaking for other people, but I'm truly going to miss you. You know, your intellect, your insight, the energy that you brought to this board, the positive energy that you brought, even when we've had some contentious moments, you've been the one to calm the storm. And I really can't say enough about your leaving on how much you'll be missed, for sure by me, definitely. I'm going to
Chairman,
stop talking now because I'll
Will
get
you be
emotional.
establishing the roast subcommittee, or?
I think we're looking at, and Mr. Fennell, we're looking at some of your most tangible contributions because our hiring process of the auditor, Ms. Reed, really would not have been what it was without you and without your leadership there. And you showing up and boldly standing in your truth and saying how so many people across the city feel has inspired me on a number of occasions. And it's been a pleasure to serve with you, and I'm praying the best for you and your family, and I appreciate you.
Yes, Ms. Pitts.
Sorry, Ms. Reed, I just wanted to take a moment. You were a mayoral appointee to the board, and while it was a different mayor in the last administration, on behalf of the mayor's administration, I would also like to add a word of thanks for your service, and we will miss you and wish you all the very best as you move on to a new season. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Any other comments for Ms. Reed? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Reed. Appreciate it. Appreciate your continued service because you do have some more meetings. So you ain't off that easy just yet. But we do appreciate you and everything that you bring, especially the spirit of God that you bring into this horseshoe every time you enter in it. So thank you so much for that, especially. And thank you to all of our board members. Just appreciate the work that has happened that's been going on. Just really great work that all of you have done and continue to do. It's so needed and necessary, even just the camaraderie from the standpoint of our committee meetings. Those go really well because I love the energy and the banter that's happening back and forth in a really, really good way to get us where we need to be going, to keep the ball, if you will, moving down the field. So I really, really appreciate that. I would like to go in and make a motion here that we begin to move our regular oversight board meetings beginning in June to once a month, and doing those on the first Wednesday of every month thereafter. And when there is a need for a special meeting, then as chair of the board, I will call that special meeting. But that is a motion I'd like to bring to us on this evening.
Second.
And so we can have discussion at this time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. All due respect, I disagree with that motion. For lack of a better explanation, I think that puts us on the fast track to irrelevancy to the public as far as the board and why we're seated here. We just hired a new auditor. He's doing excellent work. I think the public needs to hear and appreciates his report outs. I think the public also needs to see that this board, as a cohesive body, is behind our brand-new auditor, and that we're behind him on a bi-weekly basis, and that we support him. I also say we have a new board member. She's still trying to get her feet wet. She's still trying to figure out how we run this board. Reducing our meetings to once a month is not going to help her do that in a capacity that needs to be done. We also have a deputy auditor position that we're getting ready to put out into the public and hire a deputy auditor. We're going to need to meet to discuss those issues, to discuss all of that. And primarily, finally, I think it looks like a bait and switch. It looks like, the public put us here. They voted on issue 10. They wanted us here. They want to be seen. We haven't, for the past year, we have been really without an auditor. Now we have one. The public needs to have the exposure to him, regular exposure. This is just his second meeting, sitting here talking to the public. And now we take him away? That's not prudent. It's not prudent to me. I don't think it's fair to the public. I don't think it's fair to our auditor, frankly. And And I don't think we look like a cohesive board. I think it looks like we're backing away from our responsibility to the public. Now that we actually have an auditor who's actually doing the work that the public and we want him to do.
Thank you, Ms. Anaskevich. Mr. Gippen?
Mr. Chairman, I also respectfully oppose the motion. I echo what Ms. Anaskevich said. I would add these thoughts beyond that. We have a lot of work to do, and it is not just work in committee. If the committees, and it's beginning to happen, governance, I think, has always been busy. But, we're seeing it now with review committee. We're beginning to see it with community engagement, but particularly governance and review. There is going to be, if we're doing our job, there's going to be an ongoing flow of recommendations, new procedures, that the one we're working on is not the only one. And it probably, my guess is it's going to be a year anyway, or the rest of this year, to get all that done. Review, we're going to hopefully be seeing continuing flow of recommendations, from Mr. Fennell through the committee. So there's just too much to do, and we can't cut back. I'm not saying go to weekly. All right, I think 2 weeks is working well enough, but we can't put off all the work that has to come from the committee to this board, for 2 more weeks. It's just too much flow, too much work. Hopefully the meetings can be short ones like we're beginning to get, but we need to meet.
Thank you, Mr. Gippen.
Mr. Chair, would you care to expound on your recommendation?
Yeah, I think my recommendation comes from not only just my conversations with Mr. Fennell. I think when Mr. Fennell came into town, we've spent much time together and had much dialogue. And again, I'm turning to him, I think to your point, Ms. Reed, as an expert. And I asked him, because I think what was asked of me was, man, you guys sure do meet a lot. And so I said, well, Mr. Fennell, help me to understand what should be our rhythm or our cadence. So a lot of this, honestly, Ms. Reed, I'm taking from our auditor. And I'm trying to, because I think to Ms. Anaskevich's point, as a board, and this will be very familiar with you, Ms. Reed, I think as a board, we have to decrease somewhat in order for him to increase. And I think by allowing ourselves to move to once a month, I actually think it allows him more time into the community versus sitting in a meeting. Because it's in the community that he's going to be able to have, if you will, dialogue. It's hard for him to dialogue here because it's not a dialogue space for the community. Like, we're sitting here meeting and we're presenting a lot of information. But again, if we're meeting once a month, I think from a committee standpoint, I think we get a lot of this work done, but we have to rethink how we're doing the work that needs to get done, right? And I think what's going to be an uptick is I think more of the public wanting to be with Mr. Fennell and wanting him to come out and meet them where they are. And I think this gives Mr. Fennell the opportunity to do that more versus doing it less.
With all due respect, Mr. Chair, he wasn't hired to be a community relations individual for our board. He was hired to be the auditor, and he already is deluged with complaints that he needs to review. So, you know, and I know this is not your intention, but you make it sound like, his primary job is going to be out in the community meeting people and talking to people, and that's not it at all. His primary responsibility is to review complaints, answer complaints. Look, I'm not saying that, I know other boards meet once a month, but those boards have been in existence for years. They can afford to meet once a month. We've only been in existence for 1 year, and we just got an auditor. It's not a good look for us. It's not a good look for him. And I appreciate what you're saying. You've been in conversation with him. I've been in conversation with him as well. But from that conversation, I don't think this is the remedy at all. And I didn't get that impression from him that that's what we should be doing. We should be doing exactly what we're doing now. I think the public appreciates. I personally feel like, look, all of us are part of this public too. I feel like we can actually exhale now. as far as the board and having an auditor and having someone who's more than qualified to review complaints and answer to the public, and to become irrelevant, which we will be, by going once a month, that's just not a good look for us. It's just not.
Thank you, Ms. Anaskevich.
I-
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Question.
I am in support of it. I just want to say, I don't think it does make us irrelevant. I think it opens up the door for us to engage in other capacities and also be able to learn from other opportunities. So I know some of us, we are doing 3-4 nights of meetings and whatnot, and it really closes the door for us to engage in some different collaboration that can make us a stronger board, that can make us a stronger auditor's office. I think of a few of us are right now going through the Police Department Citizens Academy, and that's a commitment, but I think being able to allocate that time to be able to do that, my insight that I can bring to this board, I have grown in my thoughts and my understanding of different things. We get invitations to different events all the time, and when we have meetings 3-4 nights a week, sometimes we have to overlook those. So my personal opinion is, I don't think it makes us irrelevant. I think our commitment is still going to be the same, but I think it does open up the door for additional collaboration and opportunities for us as board members, as well as our auditor staff, to experience different things and grow in different capacities. So I support it.
It's not like our meetings are taking a month. It's not like we're meeting for like 5 hours, all right? And as far as what you just mentioned about it gives us the opportunity to be out in the community and doing other things, that was the same rationale that was used for us going to every 2 weeks. We've gone to every 2 weeks now, and I say that's where we stay. We're not going to be out there squeezing palms and meeting people and doing this indefinitely for a long period of time. The public that's watching us, we have over 100 people watching our meetings every time we meet, okay? When we were at once a week, we had over 200 people watching our meetings online. That means that the community is engaged in what we are doing. They want to know what we are doing. The community seated us here. And we're slowly but surely chipping away at our appearance in front of the community that put us here. That's not right.
With
I
all
don't
due
think we should
respect,
do that.
with all due respect, it is not about our appearance. It is about the functionality of the Office of the Independent Auditor. And I want to push back again to when you're saying it's not about being in the community. This board was formed because there was a breach of trust within the community. And there is nothing more important than it's reestablishing the credibility of this office within the community, and that happens through one-on-one personal relationships through Mr. Fennell. So I got to push back on those aspects, and I mean this in all due respect. I mean this in absolutely all due respect. What's the best way to put this? We have to be mindful of board members' time. Like we absolutely have to. And I don't think that we become irrelevant by meeting less. I think we actually become more efficient because when we are meeting, we're meeting and we're handling things in a more precise manner. So I'm in support of it, to be completely honest. I'd love to hear directly from our auditor and what his thoughts and insights are, and I'd love to hear from our new board member as well, too. If you think that us meeting more often is something that would be helpful for you getting up to speed, I'd love to know that, honestly. But I tell you what, we meet, and sometimes I'm like, why did we just meet? What did we actually get done? The real work happens in the committee meetings, and maybe we need to be rethinking how we structure our committee meetings, but let's be real, we get stuff done when we're meeting in our committee meetings. We hammer stuff out, and then we come here and we vote on it.
But Mr. Costa, that's my point is that particularly governance and review, the work doesn't stop in the committee. By and large, we're bringing matters to the board. The board needs to act on them. It's that additional 2-week delay on procedures, on review consideration, report consideration. That's what I'm primarily concerned about. And I think that, I think we do the community a great disservice if we slow up by 2 weeks. Only once a month are we going to act on procedures. Only once a month are going to act on reports coming from the auditor. That's a disservice. That's a disservice. And it's going to make these meetings very long, because as those start to flow, there's going to be a lot of discussion about procedures, just as there were with rules. There's going to be a lot of discussion potentially about reports. Some may not be so simple. I don't see the point. I do not see it. We're not going to gain anything I don't think we gain by pulling back. You know, being here for these meetings, I can't imagine. We do need to hear from Mr. Fennell, but I can't imagine that having to come to one additional meeting a month is detracting from his ability to do his work. I would expect that he would want to be able to move things expeditiously, procedures, reports, and so on. That's what I'm concerned about. And I think that if we step back now and slow ourselves up to that extent, if the community ought to be honest. If they aren't, well and good. But they shouldn't leave us alone on this. We're shirking our work if we do this.
I agree.
But I think one thing I just want to point out is when we talk about who's been engaging with the board, we see a lot of the same familiar faces. And I think this would give us that time to connect with those that haven't been on this journey with us. So we appreciate everybody who's been here day in and day out. But when I made that point of having time to engage with other organizations and other events and bringing that back, when we talk about procedures and policies, a lot of the time I gain really valuable insight through those learning opportunities or conversations. So I see it as an opportunity for us to expand our reach by being able to connect with members who haven't been part of this journey. So that is where I stand with the community getting behind us. I think we can really broaden what that looks like.
Yes, but there's a price for that. Again, that assumes we're actually going to use the extra time we buy to all go out in the community more, those of us that are community engaged. But again, there's a price for it. It's going to be a 2-week additional delay in all those things that come out of those two committees primarily for action by this board. If you weigh the two, to me, I think it's evident we can do both and should do both. Maybe there'll come a point once the procedures are done, next year sometime, when we could go to once a month. We'll see then. But to do that now, again, I think it's a great disservice. Great disservice.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know, it's not that we can't ever do it, ever. Just not now. You know, we have a new deputy auditor that we're going to have to be discussing on a bi-weekly basis. And to Caitlin's point, what you're talking about, you can always go out and do that when there's different events going on. We don't have to cancel a board meeting and have it once a month just so that you or anyone else on the board can go out and engage with community members in different community events.
You're making the assumption that everybody has the same degree of time. We're not all retired.
We're
We're not all retired. We don't like
I understand
we
that.
do like you say that there's a price to pay to meet less, but there's also a price to pay to continue working at the pace that we're working at.
But we've always, if you can't make it to a meeting, no one has forced anyone to come to a meeting that they couldn't make it to.
If we could, real quick, Mr. Peoples and Ms. Hawkins, I'd love to hear your perspectives about this.
I think we should just keep it as it is right now.
Okay.
We need to keep it.
Ms. Hawkins?
I kind of wanted to hear Mr. Fennell's opinion
Ms.
first.
Fennell?
Sort of seems like I may have started this through conversation. My initial thoughts were based off of my past experiences with boards, and in trying to think through the entire process, and also thinking about the board members and the amount of work that this type of work does, particularly for a volunteer board. It's a lot of work. This is a working board. And when you do oversight, those boards, if they're effective, they're putting in many more hours a month than just sitting here at these meetings. I've already witnessed it with the committee meetings. I've witnessed it through the other phone calls and conversations that I've had with various board members between meetings. Your board members are putting in the work. And my thought process was, if there's a way to move the board meeting to once a month, then that would lessen or lighten the load somewhat for the board members. But sitting here now and listening to the back and forth, there are considerations I did not think about. And one of those considerations I believe Mr. Gippen made was about the procedures. And I didn't really consider the 2-week lag in getting procedure approved by the board to then go to the city council for whatever that process will be. So there's other things that are built into it that unfortunately I didn't really think about. I do believe, I still believe that at some point we can be at once a month. I don't know maybe if June is that time. I don't know if it's the end of the year. I don't know if I really have a timeline other than I think as a board we'll know when that time should be. So to that point, I just don't know if going at June is the time. Although I do believe once a month is where we should be because of the amount of work that it requires for any board member or any member of this board, whether it's these individuals here or future individuals, because I'm also cognizant of burnout, and we have a group of people here on this board that are willing to put in the work and meet and stay on top of things. I don't know if the next group of people will, to Mr. Costa's point, will even have the desire to put that much time in. I don't know. So once a month would be appealing to them. So, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a motion, the board will decide, and, you know, I'll work within whatever parameters the board decides. And so those are my comments. I don't have one way or the other than to say it has made me think, hearing from everyone else, it has made me think of some other things that I didn't consider before.
Mr. Chairman, would you be willing to consider tabling your motion?
Oh, yeah, it was going to
Want to
table.
hear from the new
Ms.
member.
Richards is not here, so it was going to table.
And Ms.
Go ahead,
Ba-
Ms. Hawkins.
Ms. Hawkins.
As a new board member, I would like to meet more often so I could learn more. And it does seem like there's more work to do to get finished before we move to once a month. So I agree with the twice a month for right now.
We'll make, I need a motion, Mr. Gippen, to table it.
Table, Mr. Chair.
Second it, we'll move to table it, because I know Ms. Richards has thoughts about it as well. So we'll move to table it.
I think you need a vote.
Oh, okay. All in favor to table it?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, resolution passes. Anything else for the good of the order?
Move we adjourn.
Got a second? Ms. Anaskevich?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good evening, everyone. Safe travels.